Imagine this. You're the go-to person in your organization for most of the messy problems. You see patterns that other people miss. You think in systems and have a bigger picture view. But there's a catch. There is no enterprise architecture capability in your organization. There are no tools. There are no ArchiMate diagrams. There are no people who have a bigger picture view, and you have absolutely no foundation. Just your curiosity and an itch to design systems better. Can you relate with that? If you can, then this episode is for you. I've been talking to people, and one thing that is a recurring theme in all the communities that I'm talking to is, how do you practice enterprise architecture if your organization does not have an enterprise architecture capability? If nobody in the organization is interested in EA, if there are no tools, how do you practice? So I decided that today's episode I will dedicate it to this. And this is episode 122. But before we start off with all of this, if you're enjoying the videos that I'm posting on Enterprise Architecture Radio, then let YouTube know, like, share and subscribe, and comment. And this helps a lot when you comment on YouTube, because I get to know what it is that you would like to hear on this channel. And I would like to think of this channel as not just mine, but everybody's. At some point in time, I would like to invite guests as well. But as you know, I am an introvert, and I have planned guest episodes for a long time now with a lot of friends of mine, by the way. And if my friends are listening to this, then I'm really sorry about this. I just don't get around to doing it. There are 3 episodes a week now, and there is work and there is family, and it gets a little difficult. But eventually I'm going to get around to it. But anyway, this channel, it belongs to all of us. And the more we discuss, the more we talk, I get to know things and topics that I can cover as a part of this episode. And it also gives me fodder to talk about, So let's get to it then. The invisible architect. That's what I call an architect who's not really an architect. They don't have the title enterprise architect or what have you, but they are architects in spirit. What that means is, when you see systems, when you see applications, when you see things happening within your organization, you think like an architect. But nobody recognizes you as an architect. You don't have the title of an architect. And you would be surprised how common this is. Now, this did not apply to me, by the way. I got lucky or unlucky, I don't know. Because I got an opportunity as an enterprise architect before I was an enterprise architect. In fact, I did not even know what an enterprise architect is, and I got an opportunity. So, hilarious, but lucky, or I say unlucky because I did not go through the grind of developing myself as an enterprise architect before I got the title. I got the title, and then, I had to go through the grind of developing myself. So it was the other way around for me. But that's not the case in the industry today, right? Majority of the people who eventually become architects, and all the good ones, in fact, right? All the good enterprise architects that I know, I read, I have come to respect, people who have contributed to the enterprise architecture industry, have all been invisible architects before they actually became architects. They did what architects do. They thought what architects think before they actually got the title of an enterprise architect. And some of them are not even enterprise architects anymore. Like there was this beautiful blog called OIC, which is CIO inverted, which I used to read. He stopped writing now. I don't remember the name of the CIO who used to write this blog. He's not even an enterprise architect. But if you look at the things that he used to write, very much relatable, So what I'm trying to say is, enterprise architecture is not a title. And I've talked about this before in many of my episodes as well. It's a mindset. In fact, it is 80% mindset and 15% role. And then the rest of the 5% is the title. So I wouldn't even give 1% to the title, but just to make it sound right. So how do you go about it? How do you prepare yourself to become an enterprise architect? There are a couple of ways, 4 things really. First of all, you do not have enterprise architecture tools in your organization. And these tools are very expensive. They're not easy to get. I mean, there are a couple of tools that you can install, but they're not what an enterprise architecture tool should be. You see, an enterprise architecture tool is a client-server tool. What that means is that client side is the editor, in which you are able to create your diagrams, your catalogs, your matrices, you are able to collect documentation, etc., etc. The user interface, so to speak. But all this information needs to go and get collected into an enterprise architecture repository, which is a database of tremendous amount of data. And, like for example, all the servers that you have within your organization, if you have on-premise data centers across the world, that all the servers that are there in all the on-premise data center landscape are recorded in this tool. Now, content management database also records this information. Don't get me wrong. Like ServiceNow, for example, records all the infrastructures that you have, all the applications that you have, all the projects that you have, all the budgeting information, all the project lifecycle information, all the people, all the AC matrices, for example, who are the application managers of each application, who are the deputy application managers, and so on and so forth. All this information is recorded in ServiceNow. So in a way, if you look at it, ServiceNow could become your database, but it's not really a good enterprise architecture repository because it doesn't give you information that you need as an enterprise architect. Like, for example, if you want to design systems, right? You can collect all this information from within the ServiceNow database and store it in a more cohesive way in your enterprise architecture repository. And most of the enterprise architecture repositories today do that. They have an integration with your existing content management database or configuration management database. And they can do a nightly pull. Every night they would go and pull any fresh information that is entered the CMDB. And then automatically store it in such a way that it becomes relevant to an enterprise architect, and then generate reports and dashboards and all of that on top of it. So what I'm trying to say is enterprise architecture tools are not simple. They are complex, they are large, and it's not easy to get a trial version of it because tremendous amount of investment goes into the development of this tool. It's not a simple tool. It's an enterprise grade tool. So if you do want to try it, then you'll have to go as an organization. You can't go as an individual and say, I want to install the tool on my laptop and see how it works. You'll have to go as an organization, which basically means that the leadership needs to be aligned with you to try out a tool as an organization. And then, whichever tool organization that you're approaching, they will essentially want to talk to the leadership. And if they see that there is potential for the organization to use their tool, then they'll give you a trial version for a month, 2 months, etc. Which requires a certain amount of installation, configuration, setup. Most of the tools are now SaaS-based tools, so it's not really complex. But on their part, it's a little bit complex. They'll have to create an instance for you. And then you will have to go through the grind of collecting all the data and storing it up there and generating dashboards and reports. That's how you run a sort of a POC on a tool. So tools are not available, all right? And it's complicated to get a tool. So what do you do? Well, if smart tools are not available, if enterprise grade intelligent tools are not available, then use the dumb tools that are available to you. Use Excel, use PowerPoint, use Visio, right? Build spreadsheets, build whiteboards, build diagrams, and do all this, collect all the information that you can. Like, for example, if there's a project that comes along that you get an opportunity to engage in, right? Let's say that you're a solution architect, right? Or a technology architect, let's say, right? And you are supposed to design the infrastructure solution that is going to host this application, giving you a very, very vague example. Don't just look at it from an infrastructure standpoint only, right? Look at it from a business standpoint, from an application standpoint, from a data standpoint. Look at how the data is being managed. Is there a potential of a data mesh? Is there a potential of what is the business doing? What is the criticality of the business? Who are the stakeholders? What are the various business functions that will be involved in this? Start collecting all this information on rudimentary tools like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. I know it is cumbersome, all right? I know it's not the best way to collect information, but you have to understand that enterprise architecture is not about tools. Enterprise architecture is about information about the enterprise, and tools help. There is no doubt about it. But if you don't have tools, you do need to learn, build a mindset. Use whatever rudimentary tools are available to you and do the work. The second thing that you could do is shadow the strategy. What that means is Look at annual reports. Every year, organizations will publish information about their immediate strategy. And when I say immediate, it could be 3 years, 5 years, Look at strategy decks. And these decks are surprisingly easy to get. They'll be in your SharePoint. You just have to go look for them. In our organization, we've got ChatGPT integrated into our organization. This is not the OpenAI universal ChatGPT. This is an enterprise level ChatGPT, which has the capability to scan the enterprise, files and get me the information that I need. So I can simply ask ChatGPT to get me whatever information I need, and it does. So it becomes very easy for me these days. But even if it is not, you will find that there are SharePoint sites available. There are internal enterprise search capabilities available that will help you get your strategy decks, your KPIs, your OKRs, right? This will help you understand what is a priority. Like our organization has a priority of becoming an AI-enabled organization in the near future. And which organization does not? Most of the organizations out there are now targeting becoming an AI-enabled organization, if not AI-driven organization. So, so understand the timelines, understand the strategy, understand the organizational vision, the enterprise vision, and look at all the projects and programs that are running within your organization and see if they're aligned with the strategy or not. Why is it that they are doing whatever it is that they are doing? And it's not as simple as trying to become an AI-enabled organization. Like, for example, pharma companies might have a strategy that they need to develop 3 products, or there are 3 products in the pipeline at this point in time which they need to complete, or there are 3 projects or 3 products which are not into development. They are doing biomedical research initially and something complex essentially, right? A financial services organization could think about net assets under management. How much money are we managing at this point in time, including your retail investors, your high net worth individuals, your institutional investors, etc., etc. Yeah, how much money are we managing? That could become a metric, and you could have a target around it, that this is how much we want to do in the next whatever number of years. So every organization has that. Understand the strategy, read through the manuals, read through the reports, read through the strategy decks. You'll have a much better understanding of what the organization is trying to do. Not only that, since you are in enterprise architecture, there's a high probability that you already think in systems, right? You already see patterns. When you read all these documents, it will improve your capability to think. It will also improve your capability to think from a leadership standpoint, right? What are the leaders thinking and how are they thinking it? It will develop your mindset to look at things from a bigger picture view and then ultimately drill down to the programs and projects. There are other things that you can do. Whenever a project comes to you, don't just think about it from the scope of the project only. Of course, it will add a lot of work to your portfolio, right? You are supposed to do X, Y, Z. I took the example of infrastructure architect. Let's take the example of an application architect. Let's say that there is an application that needs to be developed and you already have the requirements, right? You need to design it. Don't just think about it from the design standpoint, right? Think about it, design of the application standpoint. Think about it from a business standpoint, right? What is the business trying to do? Why are we building this application? What is the core functionality that it provides? And then think about integrations. What are the other applications that it might have to integrate with? What are the other business capabilities that this application has the potential to impact? Think about how you are going to manage the data, because most of these applications now are global applications, right? They exist in more than one places. There are multiple instances. And it so happens that sometimes data is siloed in one location. And if that data is required by another location, then somebody has to manually copy that data from one place to the other and so on and so forth. And these days you have such beautiful data strategies like data mesh and what have you, which make your life much better. And then there are concepts such as reusable storage and what have you, where you provide temporary storage to store data temporarily, and then later on it's purged and then that recycled, and that data or that storage is reused for other, storage requirements and so on. So there are all of these beautiful concepts that exist today, which you should look into, you should think about, right? And then create reference models. Now, this is something that is missing even in people who are professionally enterprise architects who are in the role, right? You design a system, right? Think about how you can reuse that design. See, this is not a new concept. It's a very, very old concept, and it's been around for such a long time, and yet it is so underutilized. What is a reference model? A reference model is, let's say that you have a mobile application. For the first time, you're designing the mobile application, and there are complexities such as, first of all, form factor. It's not designed for a larger application, so it's designed for a smaller, like a mobile phone or a smaller device. So you need to keep in mind the form factor. So there are design considerations that you will have to think about, that how do you fit everything into a small form factor. And then there are compute and storage limitations, because you don't have unlimited compute, although we are making tremendous development in the area of storage and compute, and we have 1 terabyte mobile phones now and so on, but still there is still a limitation, right? You need to go through it. And then there are security considerations, because the mobile phone doesn't stay in your network all the time. It goes around the world and all over the place, and it accesses Wi-Fi networks which are unsecured and so on. And you need to be careful about how you're going to sandbox your data, your application, how you're going to secure it, so on and so forth. So you go through all these hoops and obstacles to build a mobile application, right? And then you're done, and the mobile application is delivered, and everybody's happy. Next time you won't need to build a mobile application, you'll have to run through the hoops again. So what you do is you build a reference model for a mobile application, a reference model that will talk about challenges, talk about design considerations that are specific to mobile applications, and store it somewhere, so that next time somebody has to build a mobile application, they can refer to it. They can go through that. Where are all the security manuals? Where are all the security standards and principles documented? How do we implement it? How was it done in the previous application? Reference models are not design reuse. They are models that can be referred to when you are designing a new application. So build reference models. It gives you a mindset. And these are not things, these are new things that you are doing. These are things that you are doing differently. You are adding to the work, of course. And it's not easy. I'm not going to lie to you. But you have, if you want to become an enterprise architect at some point in time in your future, you'll have to go through the grind of doing the extra work of studying systems, of building reference models, of reading manuals and so on. Like, for example, I am an investor, right? Stock market. I invest regularly. I also do some amount of trading. And every quarter, when the companies that I have invested in, when they publish their quarterly review reports, I go through them. Now, initially it's very difficult, because you have to understand all the numbers and all the financial accounting and all the business strategy, and some of these are these quarterly reports and annual reports are published very beautifully, right? And they also take the help of consulting organizations like Gartner, etc. So they're done really nicely, and there's a word by the leadership, and a section for the upcoming strategy about what they're doing in the digital space and so on. And it's very interesting read. I find it interesting. Not everybody does. It is extra work, and my weekend goes in all of this during quarter endings. You have to do the same for your organization, right? So it helps change your mindset quite a bit. Like I said, enterprise architecture is less about the title and more about the mindset, more about what you do rather than what you're called, right? I was enterprise architect 11 years ago. After that, I stopped being an enterprise architect. I became an infrastructure architect. Today, I do a lot of other things besides infrastructure architecture. But in my head, I'm still an enterprise architect. In my head, I still think systems. I still see patterns. I still see organizational strategy. And I find it very interesting the way the leaders think. Most of the times, we are inside our small bubble doing whatever it is that we are doing, and it's difficult to go beyond that bubble. I will not deny that. But when you start looking at how organizations function, what the strategy is, and how do you map it to the various programs and projects which are there within the organization, suddenly a light goes on in your head. Suddenly you start seeing things that you had never seen before, right? So mindset, very, very important. And finally, write about it, talk about it, right? Within your organization, you might have some form of professional social media, like we used to have Viva Engage. Now we have something called a hub There was Yammer before that, right? So you have these internal social media platforms where, you can discuss, right? Try to get into the habit of writing one post per week, every Friday evening before you go home or end the week. Think about your organization. Think about what you've learned. And if you have that habit, see, initially, you will not find a lot of information to write about, because what do you write about, right? But then it'll get into your head that come Friday, I have to write something. So throughout the week, you'll start thinking about what you're going to write. So which means that it'll open up your vision. You're no longer thinking about the only things that you're doing at work. You are now widening your perspective and thinking about, okay, I need to look at dependencies. I need to find some material to write because Friday is coming, right? So form that habit. This helps in two ways. One, that discipline will make you go beyond what you're doing right now. It'll force you to look beyond your everyday work. And second is, it'll let people know that you are thinking about these things. You are a project manager, program manager, solution architect, technology architect, application architect, whatever you are, programmer. Doesn't matter what you are right now, but you are thinking about these things which are beyond your scope. And when an opportunity comes along, they will know who to get in touch with. But before that happens, there are a lot of other things that will start happening. People will start noticing that, and it doesn't just have to be the internal social network, by the way. You can also start writing on LinkedIn. Although I'm not very happy with LinkedIn these days, because there's a ton of nonsense that I see getting published every day. I see videos, it's become a Instagram, right? People start writing about religion and, start trolling and all of that. I think that content needs to be controlled a little bit. There's another publishing platform that I used to write to. It's been a while I've not written on, Medium. Okay, it's a fantastic platform to read. I have an annual subscription on Medium. I read articles almost every day, 10 articles a day. And I also used to publish. I've stopped publishing, but it's a beautiful place to go and write about your thoughts, right? So it doesn't have to be the internal network only. You can also write in external social media networks. That way what happens is people start talking to you. That's the first thing that will happen. People will start noticing that you are thinking about these things within the organization. You're thinking about systems. You're thinking about how applications are interconnected. You are thinking about how it's impacting the business, how it's impacting the end user, how it's impacting the various stakeholders. So they'll start noticing, you will start building a leadership mindset. And finally, and when I say leadership mindset, I'm not talking about people leadership here. That is an entirely different and absolutely beautiful topic to talk about. And someday I'll bring it up as an episode. But I'm talking about, when I say leadership mindset, I'm talking about leading an organization, thinking strategy, thinking bigger picture view, thinking the larger landscape. So it builds that mindset, and eventually when an opportunity does come along, people will know who to get in touch with. So there are a couple of things that you can do before you get the tools and title. You can prepare yourself, you can read, you can learn. And I've not covered certifications here because I'm assuming that certifications is not something that I want to talk about, right? Anybody can get certified. Just get a training, invest the money, and just get certified. It's not difficult at all. Trust me. That's the easiest thing that you can do. 6 to 8 weeks of preparation and you'll be certified. That's the beginning. Certification does not make you an enterprise architect. It sets you up on the path. It's the first step, or probably second or 10th, I don't care, when you do the certification. It adds value, there is no doubt about it, but it's not the end all, right? It's the beginning. And you will have to do a ton of other things. Prepare your mind to become an enterprise architect. Start thinking like an enterprise architect, and then eventually you'll be there. And put yourself out there. Write, talk, speak. If you get a speaking engagement, set up a community where you get people together and everybody starts talking about their challenges. That's what I'm trying to do here on Enterprise Architecture Radio at a larger scale. I really want people to start talking about this stuff. It's fun stuff. It's interesting stuff. It's good to talk about. And I see that some chatter has just slightly begun on WhatsApp. So these questions, when people ask, they are not questions for me. And there are people who have reached out to me, honestly, who've said that they need help, right? And I can help them. I will not deny that. I can help guide them, in whatever capacity I have. But I think that I may not know everything. Sure, I have some experience as an enterprise architect and as a leader in the industry. That doesn't make me the master of everything, right? Because none of us can be as smart as all of us. And that's what I very strongly believe in. And that is what this podcast is all about. So that's a wrap for me today. Got a little bit longer than I expected. But I hope you have enjoyed the video. If you have, then let YouTube know. Like, share and subscribe and comment. But most importantly, Enterprise Architecture Radio is not just a podcast. Like I said, it's a collaboration platform. Let's collaborate. Let's learn from each other, guide each other, because I can't help everyone, but we all can help each other, right? So learn from each other, guide each other, but most importantly, have a ton of fun.